So we all know that Donald Trump has started a war. And then he called his closest allies and begged them for help. Well, 5 of them just said no. France said no, Spain said no, Poland said no, Italy said no, and Britain said no. Nobody wants to get dragged into another Iraq.
But here's the part that nobody is talking about. That moment right there is when the USA's grip on the Western world started to slip. And while all of this is happening, Canada is quietly walking through the door that Trump just kicked wide open.
You know, we've been saying for months that the world's reorganizing, that the old alliances are cracking, that Canada has a window. Well, today we're going to show you exactly how wide that window just got, why alliances like NATO matter, and why the world is giving the middle finger to Donald Trump.
So let's go back to February 28th. The United States and Israel launched military strikes on Iran. No warning to NATO, no consultation, no phone calls to Paris or Rome or Warsaw asking, "Are you with us on this?" Nope. Trump went in, and then after the fact, he turned to Europe and said, "You should have been there."
Now, understand what this means for a second. This isn't like calling a friend and asking to help you move on Saturday. This is like calling your friend after you've already started tearing down your house and saying, "Hey, where were you? You were supposed to help."
And the Allies were naturally blindsided. Reuters reported that European governments had 2 specific problems with what Trump did. First, no consultation. 0. Not a single NATO partner was brought into the decision before the first bomb dropped. Second, no clear objective. What exactly is the goal here? Take out Iran's nuclear capability? Topple the regime? What happens the day after? Nobody had answers, and when your closest allies can't answer those questions, they can't ask their own parliament to support you.
Which brings us to what happened next. France denied American military planes the use of its airspace. Now, to understand how significant that is, France hasn't done that to the United States since Charles de Gaulle pulled France out of NATO's military command back in 1966. That was 60 years ago. This is not normal.
Well, Spain, they went even further. Spain didn't just say no. Spain said this war is illegal under international law. The Spanish government explicitly stated they would not allow U.S. aircraft to use their airspace for what they called a unilateral war contrary to international law. That's not just a refusal, Dave. That's a moral objection.
And Spain's PM put it plainly and directly. He said, and I quote, "23 years ago, the U.S. government dragged us into a war with Iraq, a war set to fight to eliminate Saddam Hussein's nuclear weapons and bring democracy. But no nuclear weapon was found in Iraq. God forbid I will ever allow my country to fall for such rubbish propaganda again, and not on my watch."
Italy denied the U.S. the use of Sigonella Air Base without prior authorization from Rome. It's one of America's most strategically critical bases in the entire Mediterranean. So think about that for a moment. The U.S. has used Sigonella as a launching pad for decades, and Italy just said, "Not without our permission, dude." No, you don't.
No way. And then there's Poland, which is America's strongest military partner in Eastern Europe right now. They refuse to move its Patriot missile defense systems to the Middle East. Hey, of course, you can understand why. Poland is sitting right next to Russia. Moving their air defense systems south would leave Poland completely exposed. So Trump basically begged them to strip their own protection to support his war.
It's almost like he's rooting for Russia to win that war or something. Anyway, let's talk Britain. The United Kingdom, America's so-called special relationship partner, the one where the king is going to visit. Well, they showed what media outlets described as hesitation and distance. Keir Starmer met with Trump. The meeting ended, and Britain did not commit. And Trump mocked Starmer on his way out.
So that's 5 countries, 5 refusals from America's closest allies.
So let's talk about what that means for you at home, because there's a reason this isn't just a political story. It's a kitchen table story. That's the narrow waterway that's only about 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest. It sits between Iran and Oman.
And here's the number you need to focus on. Roughly 20% of the world's entire oil supply passes through that strait. Think about that like a pipeline. 1/5 of the world's oil. If that strait gets disrupted, which it already has, if ships stop moving, which they already have, and if insurance costs spike, if tankers reroute, the price of energy goes through the roof.
Your heating bill, your gas pump. I just saw $1.72 yesterday per liter. Your grocery bill, because food is transported by trucks that run on diesel. Every one of those things is connected to what happens in that 33-kilometer stretch of water. And when Trump launched this war without a plan for what happens if Iran retaliates against shipping, well, that's exactly what got disrupted.
Now, for a lot of people, you can remember the oil shocks of the 1970s. You remember what it felt like when prices at the pump tripled almost overnight. You remember the lineups at those gas stations.
Well, we're not at 1973 yet, but the mechanics are the same. When the world's oil supply gets choked, the cost goes up. And when energy costs go up, everything costs more. So that's why this matters, not just as political drama, which Trump is very good at, but as an economic event that reaches into your savings.
And here's the part that should make you stop and think even more. Trump has spent 2 years saying NATO is useless, that America doesn't need its allies, that he could walk away from the alliance tomorrow and it would be just fine. And then, the moment he started a war, what is the first thing that he did, right? He called those same allies, he demanded that they stand with them. He said, and I'm quoting here, "We don't need them, but they should have been there anyway."
Seriously, both of those things cannot be true at the same time. Either you need them or you don't. You can't say NATO is a paper tiger and then rage when the paper tiger won't fight for you. What Trump actually revealed is something important. He knows that America cannot project power globally without allies, without their air bases, their airspace, their political cover, their ships in the water beside America's ships. He knows it. We know it. He just refuses to admit it.
And like Dev said, us as allies, we know it, which is why France, Spain, Italy, they didn't cave, they held the line. There's a phrase political scientists use for what Europe is afraid of right now, and it's called entrapment. It means being dragged into a war you didn't choose for reasons you don't understand with no exit plan.
That's what you get for electing a spoiled reality show star. He has no clue about diplomacy.
You know, for 40 years, Europe was worried about the opposite, which is abandonment. America walking away and leaving them alone to face Russia. Now, the fear has flipped completely the other way. Europe isn't afraid of America leaving. Europe is afraid of America pulling them into something completely reckless.
And when that fear becomes the dominant emotion in Brussels and Paris and Rome, the alliance is already fundamentally changed.
And when the biggest player in the alliance becomes less predictable, completely reckless, countries start looking for dependable partners elsewhere. And that's where Canada enters the picture.
And this is the part that we want you to pay attention to. While Trump was burning his bridges with Europe, country by country, ally by ally, what was Canada doing? Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney was building new ones.
Last month, France started signaling something that would have sounded pretty far-fetched not long ago, that Canada could play a much bigger role alongside Europe. Not a formal invitation, not some signed golden ticket, but a very clear sign that Europe is rethinking who it wants close to them.
That's not a coincidence. Europe is looking for a trusted North American partner, a country with resources, with stability, with rule of law, and with shared values. A country that doesn't launch unilateral wars without consultation and then force everyone to join them. And Canada, we just became that country.
And here's the strategic reality. Think of Canada right now as a trustworthy neighbor on the street. After the loud, unpredictable guy 3 doors down has been picking fights with everyone on the block, suddenly everyone wants to talk to the calm neighbor. Suddenly, your calls get returned. Suddenly, invitations arrive that weren't arriving before. Now, Europe denied Trump's military planes airspace. Canada is being invited to share European strategic infrastructure. Now, that contrast, that is the story of this moment.
Canada is not rushing to attach itself to Trump's war. Canada is doing something much smarter, showing Europe that it can be reliable without being America's sidecar. The world is reorganizing around trust, stability, and who still believes in rules. And right now, Canada has the real opening in that kind of world.
So let's be real here. What we're watching is the end of a specific era. The era where the US assumed that its allies would follow whatever it led, no questions asked. That era began in 1945, and it cracked badly on February 28th, 2026.
European countries are now accelerating their own defense programs. France, Germany, Poland, they're all moving towards building military capacity that doesn't depend on American goodwill or American decision-making.
In fact, Germany is reportedly reviewing the legal basis of American military bases on German soil. Think about what that means. American bases in Germany have been there since 1945, and now Germany is asking whether it has the right to set conditions on what those bases can be used for.
And Marco Rubio,
Marco.
the U.S. Secretary of State, if you don't know who that is, well, he essentially confirmed that America may re-examine NATO's future if Europe denies basing rights. Well, dude, they're already doing that without you. You're just a couple months behind. So we have both sides escalating right now. America threatening to leave. Good on ya. Europe building the capacity to survive if America does leave. That's not an alliance working normally. That's an alliance going through something fundamental.
And Canada, sitting between those two worlds, is in a position to shape what comes next in ways that would have been unimaginable 5 years ago.
So here's the bottom line. Trump went to war expecting obedience. He got resistance instead. He called his allies private armies. He found out that they have their own parliaments, their own laws, their own people to answer to. And in the process of trying to assert dominance, he accelerated the very thing he was trying to stop. A world that doesn't depend on the USA.
So here's what we want to know from you today. Do you think Canada should formally deepen its partnership with Europe, even if it strains our relationship with the United States? And how far should we go? And as always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it.
Have a great day, everybody, and we shall see you tomorrow.
Ciao for now.